Connor, and I'm a study coordinator here at Delridge Research. Today I'm going to show you a document that we use for all of our studies, which is also known as the patient tracker. What is a patient tracker, you might add? A patient tracker is a way that we monitor and hold our site accountable for a variety of information needed pertaining to each individual patient. At the bottom of each tracker, you will see that there are a variety of tabs. For instance, we can see at the bottom of this tracker we have general info, PCP letter tracker, visit calculator, lab tracker, EKG tracker, AE tracker, EDC, ICF and source versions, and also chart review. So what I'm going to do today is go over each individual tab on the tracker to give you a general sense of kind of what is the important information that we do need to keep track of for each study. So on our general info tracker page, you will see that in this column, we list the patient's name, first, middle, initial, and last. Then we'll put their contact numbers. So this could be a home phone, a cell phone, any phone numbers that the patient may give us. We also will list their address, making sure to include city, state, and zip code. And then we will also put their date of birth, month, day, and year. We also will sometimes put the gender, and then the patient initials, first, middle, and last. And then their subject number, which will normally be the site, followed by a dash, and then whatever that particular subject number is. Also at the top, you can see that we have a color legend. So for each tab, there are different colors that we use to kind of keep track of and follow the status on different things. So ones that are very common for most studies are patient randomized, patient screen fail, patient loss of follow-up, patient 17 years old, or minor, things like that. So basically, for randomized and screen fail, you'll highlight the subject number, and then for minors, you'll highlight their name. This is a good way of us just to keep track of what the patient's status is in any study. Also, you'll see on the general info page, we have a medical records part. So not all studies will require medical records. Some may, so we like to keep track of how many times we sent for medical records, if we've received them, things like that. So in this column, you have your patient here, then you'll come over and you'll put medical records for blank office. Here's their fax number, and they were sent on May 20th, just a random day. And so once you send them, you will highlight this box. Once the medical records get received, you'll green the box. So if a box is blue and it stays blue forever, we know that we've never received the medical records. And there are 3 columns so that we can log multiple attempts for the medical records sent. So this is just a general overview of the first tab. The next tab, a PCP letter tracker. So a couple of our studies may give the option for our site to notify a patient's PCP. So if a study does give the option, this would be a good place for us to keep track on whether or not the subject elected for us to notify the PCP. So patient initials, subject, then we would put yes or no, and then the date notified if it was yes. Also, just a good rule of thumb, the patient initials and subject number will be the same on every page. So they just list in order of their number and then the corresponding initials, and it'll be the same on this page as well. The next page is the visit calculator, which is a very important page because it allows us to keep track on if patients are coming to their visits in window, if they've skipped a window, when we can be expecting to see the patient at the site, and things like that. So for instance, the visit calculator is something that also has equations within each cell block. So here we have a screening block. So we would put the date of the screening visit. So it could be March 20th. And then we would know, for instance, the baseline deadline by putting up here, the subject has, 30 days from their screening date to come into randomize, or 60, whatever it may be. So up here is where you would put that information. So basically, you would create a formula in this box where you would click Alrighty, so looking at the visit calculator, if the screening date, let's give an example, was March 20th, 2018, then the baseline date could be 35 days from that screening date. So what I would do is I would do equals sum of this cell plus 35. And so I know that my subject has to come in the latest by April 24th. So let's say my subject does come in on April 24th. So I would put that there. Then I can see that week 1 can be plus or minus 2 days. So I would put the target date, which is 1 week from this day. So I would do equals sum of this cell. Sorry about that, guys, I messed up. Sum of this cell. Messed up again. It's all right. Sum of this. Okay. Give me 1 second, people. I don't know what's going on. Sum of this plus 7, because that's 7 days. It's a week. There you go. So then week 2 would be equals the sum of, you could either do this cell plus 7 or the baseline day plus 14. Doesn't really matter. We'll go baseline plus 14 because that's 2 weeks. So basically, in order to make sure that this formula rolls over for the next patient, let's say my next patient randomizes on April 30th, 2018. All I would need to do to get their target dates would be to click these cells, grab this little thing right here, drag it down, and then there are my target dates for that subject. So let's say this first subject comes to their baseline visit. I would gray it. Then I can see that their next visit is a week later. So I would put due next week and make it blue. And then the other one would be due in 2 weeks. So other colors that are up here would be, let's say that the subject came to this week 1 visit right here in blue, but it was 3 days after this target date. So they came, but it was out of window. So that would make it purple. Let's say my subject never came to their visit and they dropped from the study or the visit was just never done, you would make it orange. And then if the visit's overdue, which means the subject's visit is out of window and they have not come, you would make it red. So there are a bunch of different colors that we use to keep track of the patient's status in the study. So I'm just going to go through and clear this all out because this is our template. Next tab we have is our lab tracker. Again, the patient's initials and subject number will be just how they were on the previous pages. So up here, you put the visits that need labs drawn. And then in the box or the cell, you put the day that the labs were actually drawn. So let's say the labs were drawn on March 10th, 2018. So when the labs are sent, you make them blue. Once I get the labs back and I print them, I make them purple. Then once I get them back from the doctors and they're signed and I put them in the patient's binder, I'll make them gray. Sometimes you'll get multiple reports for one subject, such as a biomarker report, which comes back separate from the chemistry and hematology report. So you would have a column for biomarkers. And so that's just a confirmation that it was received. So we would print that out and just immediately file it. It wouldn't go through the colors of being signed and all of that kind of stuff. Alrighty, so EKG tracker, this is only applicable if the study needs an EKG. Very similar to the labs, you put the visits up here that you need EKGs for. You put the day the EKG was done in the cell. When the EKG is complete, you make it green. If it's printed, you make it purple. And then when you get it back from being signed, you'd make it gray and file it. All right, so really important tracker is our AE tracker. This also is our adverse event tracker, also known as AE, and basically patient initial subject. So if you have a subject and they have an AE, you will come in here and manually put their initials, their subject. You'll put the day we found out about the AE. So let's say we found out about the AE on March 20th, 2018. Let's say my patient had wisdom teeth surgery. Right? So obviously this is going to have a start and stop date, which was the day of the surgery. Let's say the surgery happened on March 1st, 2018. And try and keep everything in the same format. So format, number, I want to make it a date. So that's the start and the stop date was the day of the surgery. So because I have both of those, I will color the box. Then we don't need a stop date because we already have it, so that'll be blank. Once I create the source document, all I will do is blue this box. Once I have my note to file, I'll just purple this box. Once I get the AE back and they're both signed, the start date and the stop date, I will make this box gray, and I will make this box gray as well. That gray. Then once I input it in EDC, I'll come back and make this box yellow. So once something's completed, you'll color off the box. Now let's say that I have an AE where I need to get a stop date. So we would do a 30-day follow-up phone call if it's required in the protocol from the day that we had the AE recorded as. And you would put the date here. So if the phone call needs to be on the April 20th, you would leave it like that. And then once you do it or you get a stop date finally, you'll orange it off. So nothing's ever highlighted off until it's actually completed. That way, if you're trying to figure out where you stand on the status of an AE, you can always come back and refer to this tracker. Another tab on our patient trackers, EDC Tracker tab. So basically up here you have the visits that get inputted in EDC, patient initial subjects, and basically you'll put the date of the screening visit. Once the source is complete, you'll yellow it. Once you've put the data into EDC, but let's say you have to wait for labs to come back to finish it, you would make it blue. Or if you're able to just put everything in EDC, you would just gray it off. But the day of the visit, even if you don't complete the source, you should come in here and put the day the visit happened, but you just won't fill the cell in with any color. Another important tab are for keeping track of our versions for different source. So there are instances where we'll create source and we find a mistake, but we've already used the source for some subjects. So in this case, we'll create a version 2. Whichever day you are going to begin implementing the new source is the day that you'll put on this tracker. So let's say we have our screening source that was created the day we started enrolling patients. Let's say we enrolled patients on March 20th, 2018. But then let's say on, the evening of April 1st, I make a change to the source. So I know that on April 2nd, that new source will be used, and it'll be a version 2. So I'll come over here, I will uncolor that cell, and I'll put April 2nd. Even though I created the source on the 1st, because patients on the 1st didn't use that source, we will put the 2nd because that's the day that we'll actually implement it. And then the last chart, the last tracker is for chart review. This is something that Shelby, Annie, or any site manager will use. This is also helpful if your monitor is here for a visit. These colors up here will signal, what's the status of the chart, if it's good to give to the monitor, if it's missing something, or if it's just not ready as a whole. And then these comments will help us to know what the chart is missing or corrections that need to be done. But overall, this is basically the entire patient tracker. Tabs can always be added to keep track of other things that studies, that one study may have that most studies don't, or things like that. So always looking for new and innovative ways to keep the tracker up to date, or easier ways to keep the tracker up to date. But yeah, this is basically it. Thanks for listening. Bye.